It's sort of a homecoming. It sort of feels good to get back here in Indiana. Man, it's this is my home, you know, and I have a lot of good memories right here at the Indy Boat Sport and Travel Show, running around. It's just there's a lot of good memories, a lot of good people, you know. It's sort of cool. I'm sitting up here, you know, people coming by that had a lot to do with, you know, me being able to fish professionally. A lot of people here had a lot of things to do with what went on in my life and helping me grow as a person, helping me grow as a man. So it's, you know, I'm very grateful for a lot of these people out here and a lot of the stuff I've learned. I'm really grateful for Indiana. I'm really grateful for the people around here and what I've learned. So I want to take a little bit of that time and talk a little bit about, you know, how to target these bass in the pre-spawn. For those of you who don't know who I am, I fished the Bassmaster Elite Series last year. Came in third in AOI, about 15 points or 17, about 20 points out of winning Angler of the Year. Won the first event of the year, had a really good year, and had a very successful season. So this year started off a little bit slow, but that's part of it. You know, that's one thing that people talk about. They always talk about those tournament wins, and this is what I like to talk about. They always talk about the wins, and the things they do, and they always catch them, and oh man, they don't talk about the times you don't catch them. You don't catch them more times than you catch them, and people need to understand that. You paint this picture, and failure is a part of life. It's how you deal with it that makes you the person you are. So, first tournament of the year was not what I expected it to be. Last year, everything went smoothly. First tournament of the year, it was tough, but it's that next tournament, that next challenge. You get up, you get after it, you put your head down, and go to work. So that's something that I'm planning on doing. We're going to rig up a couple different things about how we got target these pre-spawn bass in Indiana. I got the A2O boating supply bag over there. My boys over there hooked me up, helped me out. And I got a few different things that I want to talk to you guys about. Obviously, you know, I grew up 10 minutes from right here. I mean, you look at these guys and y'all hear these stories of me. I was that kid. There's a lot of people in this crowd right now. I was that kid that went to the boat ramp over here at White River, and they were like, man, that kid wants to go fishing. Gosh, nah, just ignore him. Get away from that sucker, man. All he wants to do is throw a dang topwater. That's what I did. That's all I wanted to do. If I had me a spinner rod, a dang bait caster, if I could fire me a topwater out there and catch a smallmouth, I was in heaven. Indiana, you're from Indiana. How do you fish professionally? How do you make it professionally in Indiana? And I'm like, well, this is the thing about Indiana. There's actually, I mean, I look at Geist Reservoir back, 10 years ago, it was probably one of the best bass fisheries within 10 hours of here, probably. There was some really good fishing. It still is really good. It's still probably one of the best bass lakes within 5 hours, of the city. So I grew up on some of the best fishing, Waveland back in the day. There was bass everywhere on that place. I used to catch some suckers. It was so much fun. They were like your pets. So I learned, and people used to give me a hard time. I will say this while I'm rigging up. People used to give me a hard time, and they used to say, hey, they said, man, why are you fishing Geist? Why are you fishing Morris? Why are you fishing Waveland? You need to be fishing them bigger lakes on Monroe, Patoka, all that. That's what you need to be doing. And the thing is I was still learning. I mean, we're always still learning, but I was still learning. I had to understand how to catch a fish before I can pattern a fish on a big lake, or how to understand how to get a bite on a swim bait, or how to get a bite on a spinner bait, and what they felt like. I had to understand those things in order to be able to be efficient on those big bodies of water. And people, I learned so much from going down to the pond up there in Carmel. I used to have a little place, a little subdivision. I'd roll up in there and rain and catch some bass, and you learn so much because you learn by getting bit. You learn that you're doing things right by getting bit. It's not always a deal where you're going to catch them, you're going to reel them in. It's not how that is, but you need to know that you're doing something right when you're out there. So obviously we had a lot of rain going on, a lot of things happening, but one of my favorite techniques to catch fish in the pre-spawn is throwing a single swim bait. It's something that catches a lot of fish all over the country. Some lakes, like Patoka, Monroe, the places that are going to be a little cleaner, even if with the bigger rain, more than likely it's going to calm down. The winds or the rains are probably going to stop a little bit here in the spring, and you get some of that clean water. It doesn't necessarily have to be super clean. That's one thing people don't understand, is if you have the right swim bait, and I'm winding this, a lot of times on a spinner rod right here, if I'm fishing for smallmouth or I'm fishing for largemouth and the water's clean, I'm going to use a bait caster if I'm not. And a swim bait is very similar to a rattle trap, a shallow crankbait. You can fish them in the same areas on them shallow flats as fish get out there. I'll tell you what, who throws a red crankbait in the springtime? Raise a hand. All right, red crankbaits. Everybody knows red crankbaits. Red crankbaits, absolutely. I'll tell you what, the other day, and I'm telling you this because y'all don't live near me anymore. Y'all don't live right down the street no more. The other day, I sat there and I was like, man, we all throw red crankbaits and red this and red that. I'm like, why in the world would we not throw red swim baits? Why can't you wind a red swim bait around and catch them? I threw that red swim bait out there on Chickamauga and I started winding that sucker around. And they started, dunk. I was like, water was stained. Water was not the right color necessarily for a swim bait, but they could see it. I mean, it was a foot visibility. I'm talking, just a little bit of, hey, I'd throw that sucker out there, put it on a spinner right here, wind it out there, and I would slow up, and then that's about what would happen right there. And I'd be like, and he'd have it. That's a big, and I wish I had a hook right now on that sucker. I'll tell you what, if you don't catch a bass, you have a tough tournament, you just got to talk to Terry and tell them you need to come here and cut your hooks off and feel what they feel like when they bite that thing. Oh, these fish are fun. Oh, Jimmy, you sucker. I might need to stay up here the whole time for the next 4 or 5 hours. I got some baits I need to test to see if they work right. We have that swim bait there. But that swim bait is such a good bait when that water is clean, when the water visibility is 2 foot or more. And a lot of people, I talk to these people, in Indiana we want to fish the bank. A lot of guys go out there and cast the bank. If you want to be, and this is for some of the guys who are really trying to become a better tournament fisherman, I hear fishing specific things. And what I mean by specific things, sometimes will make you a better angler. They'll make you a better angler, a better tournament angler. And what I mean by this is, a lot of times on our bodies of water, everywhere you go, the guys who go out there and cast around, they might catch a big bag one day, catch 20 pounds out there on a big flat. But the guy that goes and he knows where that one stump is, and grabs around and finds one stump and sees, hey, there's that beautiful laydown that just fell in. And he went over here and he found a little rock pile. Those are the places that are going to be high percentage places. That's going to put your tournament standings as an angler going to move way up. You're going to be ready to go. You're going to have a lot. That's going to help you out as a tournament angler. Once you open up the specific things that you're targeting and understand. I have a lot of places all over, on Geist that I would roll up to and there'd be like one rock. And I would make a cast. I'd make 5 casts. He was there or he wasn't. And I'd ride out. I'd go to the next place. It just makes you a better angler. Now it takes some more time. That's more time. The reason it makes you good is you know what's around. What I do is I spend more time now graphing around on these bodies of water, learning what's there in a foot, 2 foot, 3 foot to 10, 12 foot of water than I do actually fishing. Once I know that body of water, it's like knowing the basketball court as a professional basketball player. You know where the three-point line is. You know where the free throw line is. You know where all those things are. You know where the half-court line is. You know where everything's out of bounds, okay? You know the court. Once you know the court well enough, you can make solid decisions now that you know that. And that's very important as maturing and becoming a better angler. You have to know your bodies of water in order to do that. Now, the spinnerbait. The one thing people don't understand, the spinnerbait is that it's not just a shallow water bait. It's not just a shallow water, you wind it up there in a foot of water. You can utilize this bait in 6 inches of water to 20 feet of water. okay? And such a super versatile bait, especially when that water's stained, especially right now. And so what I'm going to utilize this thing, when I pitch them out there, most of the time when I'm throwing a spinner bait, I'm going to let it go to the bottom. Don't even. Okay. I'm going to try to wind this thing without this fish biting it, but if it happens and I get sidetracked, you just yell at me, okay? So the thing is, I'm going to start, oh, you suckers, all right. I'm going to pick him up. I'm going to start winding him real slow. That sucker just chomped it. I try to get away from him. All right, hold up. I'm going to make another little cast here. When I pitch him out there, I'll let him, my initial cast, I let him go to the bottom, especially in 4 and 5 foot of water. I'll kick him up, make a couple whine, doom, whine, and I'll try to drag him along the bottom, and he pops up, kill him. The thing about a spinnerbait, you don't just necessarily, oh, suckers. The thing about a spinnerbait is you don't want to just keep that constant winding action. A lot of times you're going to get your bite and you don't want to do too much necessarily, but a lot of times when I wind over a tree, I'll pitch him out there, let him go to the bottom, all right? And I'm winding, I'm crawling him, wind him, doom, pop it over the tree, kill it. Pop it over the tree, kill it. And the cool thing about, oh, you son of a gun. That sucker. They're hungry, man. If we could just go to this pond right here, if I could lock up and fish this place right here on the Sabine River, I'd be in business. I'd have enough bass to catch them food, no problem. But the real thing about it is you have to pay attention to the details. And what I'm trying to get to is, when you cast out there, you go to the bottom, you want to feel a lot of that stuff, especially when the water's colder. The colder the water, the slower the retreat. I'm going to slow that down, I'm going to wind it real slow, and I'm going to try to feel the pieces of cover that I'm bumping across. The advantage with a spinnerbait, it's very much so like a crankbait. You're going to wind that thing through there, and you're going to deflect it off those pieces of cover, and that's going to really trigger those fish into biting. Those fish are, all right, you got to understand, a bass, if he's sitting on a flat, say we got this big flat, right? All right, say this stage is a flat. You think that sucker's going to sit out here in the middle of the flat for no reason? No. He's going to sit by a log. He's going to sit by that stand over there. You know, he's going to sit over there by them chairs. He's going to be somewhere around something. He does not want to be out in the middle of nowhere. The only reason you'll see for a bass to do some crazy stuff like that is if he's just on bait. If he's on shad or something, that's when they get that way. They're going to go roaming around, and then you're just like, it's like playing Yahtzee. You're hoping to get it. You know, you're just hoping. So 3 different things I'm going to pick. Like I said, number 1, when you have the water clarities, somewhere around the water clarities, you have pretty good water clarity. I'm going to roll with the double willows. Oh, that sucker right there, I pissed him off. Made him mad. Yeah. The bluegill ain't so good. Sucker ate the tail. The water clarity, clear. Throw some willow blades. Water clarity is more stained. I will tell you one other thing. One little combination. You have a single Colorado with the water clarity a little bit more stained, and then the best that I personally like, when it's super dirty, when it's bombed out money and you go to your lake, which is going to be a great color this spring, is a big Indiana and a red little Colorado blade. That sucker right there, it's just something about those fish seeing that little bit of flash, that red blade, that kick, that thump. It's really important. Keep it simple though. Keep it very simple, and you're going to be a lot more surprised with your results. Tournaments cranking in the state of Indiana probably than about anything. Truthfully, I have. I remember. If you guys know him, I got a boy buddy of mine. Call him Greg Morehouse. That sucker right there, we call him Lester. And I go down to the river one night, and there was a guy out there. This is a little bit story about cranking. There was a guy out there, and I was like, man, hey, you guys take me fishing? Will you take me fishing? I got $10 for half the entry fee. And the guy's like, he didn't take me fishing. Didn't take me fishing. Well, the other guys felt bad in the parking lot, and they said, man, shoot, I got to help this kid out. So the guy's name is Greg Morehouse, Lester. call him old dad. A lot of guys call him a lot of different stuff. Don't call him late for dinner. This sucker literally, he's like, hey, you come out next week, we're going to go fishing. I said, all right. So we go out next week. It was right around chatterbait, 1.5, stuff like that came out. I mean, I still remember this. I remember the bites. I remember the fish. I remember the sucker had the fish we caught that day from the freckle he had. I mean, I remember it from the detail. Anyway, this sucker got me there and he says, hey, you get up on that troll motor, kid. You need to catch you some of them bass. Get up on that troll motor. I'm going to sit back here. I said, all right. So I get up there and I'm all worried and stuff. We get on that bank. And he learned, I learned a lot. We wind down through there and they were just chomping that crankbait and that chatterbait sideways. And that was something that taught me that day. We started fishing and we started fishing up there at Moore's. And it was always, hey, get on that bank. Get that parallel shot. Hey, paying attention, and it said always getting down through there, cranking your crankbait down there, bumping the bottom. All of those things really dictated. And that guy, to this day, we still go up there once in a while. We'll go fish a tournament on Morris. We'll still go right up there to the lake. We'll go fish on Morris. But I'll tell you what, that crankbait, I'm telling you what, we want to call a lot of bass cranking around. And that old Lester, he taught me a lot about that little crankbait right there. But the one thing about a square bill in the state of Indiana is our bass don't live that deep. They don't live as deep as other bass in a lot of places in the country. So a square bill is such a big bait here because of that. The bass only lives so deep. So understanding line size, understanding rod size. If you lose a few fish on a crankbait, number one mistake too, change your hooks, okay? The hooks are dull, if they're messed up, change them out. Go buy a few things, because at the end of the day, what's the worst thing you do? You go out there, you fish a tournament, you have stock hooks on there, and then you lose a fish or something like that. Well, that's your tournament right there. You might have won the tournament, won a little bit of money, maybe won the tournament yourself. So for me personally, changing the hooks out, paying attention to those details, that's going to help you out in the long run. Absolutely. Line size and then rod as well. One thing I remember, I was cranking this rod. Rod's key as well. Action, you want a lighter action rod. You want something that's parabolic. You want something that's going to really absorb the shock of those fish. Absorb the shock. Because this is the thing, a heavy action rod, you don't want to feel that bite. When you deflect off that rod, you don't want to feel that fish go boom. Because what are you going to do? Jerk. You want something, when you're winding that crankbait, you want to deflect off that piece of cover, and you just keep on winding, and all of a sudden you feel load up. And that's what you personally are going to want to have for a good crankbait rod. You want to load up. Now we can talk about it down here a little bit, talk a little bit about what you need, but that's something that really is super important when you're crankbait. You can have the right setup, the right stuff, everything you possibly need. But if you don't have the right action rod and you're losing the right hooks, if you don't have the right action rod, a crankbait, that's the one thing that I will tell you. A crankbait is a huge ordeal in having the right action rod, so you guys can ask me a little bit about it. And one other thing, same thing with even the spinnerbait. You wind that sucker down there, and I'll deflect off something, and I see so many people cranking. You don't always wind it. Okay, it's a pulling deal. Okay, so if I'm cranking on this bank and it's 2 foot of water, imagine I'm hitting the bottom. I'm cranking it down there, and once I start hitting the bottom, I slow that crankbait down. A lot of my bites on a crankbait come as I'm pulling that crankbait and winding it real slow. Yes, it's a chunky and winding, absolutely. You're going to get some bites, there's no doubt. But when you pay attention to what that bait's doing, and I'm cranking it down through there, and I'm deflecting off stuff, and I slow it down there, and it's hitting the bottom, your crankbait's still wobbling, it's still working for you. Sometimes that slower retrieve, now I want to make sure I'm on the bottom. Son of a gun. Son of a guns. I want to make sure I'm still on the bottom, but I'm going to get it down there and get it going. It's one of those things that, guys, look, at the end of the day, you got to pay attention to those things. And those are a few of my tips that have absolutely helped me a ton in the state of Indiana.